These two photographs are taken from the photographic archives of the Library of Congress, one of the largest libraries in the world. It is the official library of the United States. There are more than 1.5 million visual documents in the Library of Congress's photo archive. Among them, these two photographs identified as of Eskimo women, probably what would be called today Inuit women, taken sometime very early in the 20th century. One of them dates from probably 1915. The figure right next to me here probably dates from 1907. They show women in traditional dress. They show women who obviously have been posed by the photographer as if for portraits, who seem very pleased to be there. What they do is, of course, record a native culture that in the early 20th century was thought to be dying, which in fact is not thought to be dying at all anymore. They're vibrant, living cultures that have come to adopt modern ways, using snowmobiles, where they used to use dog sleds, but also continuing to use dog sleds, and knowing how to handle animal skins. The Northwest environment is rich in animal life, and the animals play a large part in the mythologies and the legends of history of origin of people in the world. Jim Charlie's relief carving called Orca Panel portrays an orca, killer whale, which appears very frequently in the arts of the peoples of the Northwest Coast. It also is of a wood that is typical of the woods they use. It's made of red cedar. And it's painted with a modern substance, painted with acrylic paint. You look carefully at the surface, you will see that it is carved all by hand, individually gouged out. He may have begun the carving using a router, using a mechanical tool, but then all tools are mechanical at the start. And why shouldn't an artist take advantage of modern technologies when they are available to him or her? Another of the animals that appears very frequently in the arts of the Northwest Coast is the eagle, because there are many eagles in that part of the world, because eagles are fishing birds just as most of the Northwest Coast peoples are fishing people. And here, an abstraction, a representation in 2 dimensions of an object that also appears sometimes in 3 dimensions in the arts of the Northwest Coast, an eagle. Totemic animal, an animal often associated with the history of people, as is the orca, as are other animals of that part of the world, like the beaver, like the crow, like the woodpecker, and so forth. in the entry hall to the residence are 3 paintings by a contemporary artist, Betsy Gandy, who works now in Florida. She is a friend of Ambassador and Mrs. Arreaga for some years. They met when both families were in the Foreign Service. The paintings that Betsy Gandy does are in fact recreations of cave paintings that she learned about during her travels in northern Spain and southern France. They're in fact copies of paintings from the Upper Paleolithic, a time when southern Europe had a subarctic climate. It was the end of the last glaciation. And in fact, they are among the earliest examples we have extant of art made by human hands. These were made by the ancestors of those of us who come from a European background. In fact, the handprint that you see in the lower right on the painting could be interpreted as a signature. We have numerous examples of these in the art of Paleolithic times where human beings either dipped their hand in colored clay and pressed it on a wall, or held their hand against the wall and then blew clay through probably a hollow bone around the hand, creating a negative image, using the hand as a kind of a stencil. But it's also a representation of identity. The animals are animals that they hunted. These people lived by hunting and gathering. They did not farm. In fact, it was not an environment that was friendly to farming. Also, this is art for a cold place and cold time, which is also true of the art of the Northwest Coast. Another similarity is it's art that is representational of animals, much more so than of human beings. This is called Elena Dancing. It's by Kathleen Walsh, an American painter who lives in Fredericksburg, Virginia, not far from Washington. Kathleen spent much of her adult life as what we often call in the State Department an embassy spouse. Her husband was a Foreign Service officer. She is very active as an artist, and she works in many media. I first encountered her work in watercolor. This is a mixed media piece. It involves painting, collage, drawing, and there's some other bits and pieces of work that I can't quite identify. It works interestingly into the theme of this exhibition in that it portrays a figure in movement. If you look at the figures as they move across, you're looking at the same person, but she is moving across the space. This piece of sculpture by Randy Stiglitz, who's a Haida carver, a modern Haida carver from the far northwest coast, from the native nations or the Northwest Indian tribes, is called a Zunukwa mask. And it represents another of the spirits of the Haida world. Like its neighbor across the room, it should be seen in movement. It would speak to you. It would be present on a dancer, and its movement and the narrative of the performance would have a great deal of meaning. This one by Josh Dawson, another modern Haida sculptor, is called a Bukwas mask. Its Haida name is, to many English speakers, almost unpronounceable. It's Kwakwakwako. It is, in fact, supposed to be seen worn by a dancer in movement, and it speaks to its audience. So we see here an echo of a much more complex art form. To us, it is interesting because of its color, because of the way it distorts what looks like a human form. In fact, it combines human and animal form. Those eyes are very much like eagle eyes. That hair, by the way, is horsehair. They often use horsehair in their masks, and it is very anthropomorphic in its conception. But as you see, it's about 3 times life size. These masks are interesting as sculptures, but they are even more interesting as elements of performance art.